Yeah, I told you, if the tire blows, it is not going to alert you. You got to know what's going on with your tires at all the time. And this TPMS is not going to do that. Yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it? Hey guys, this is Chris with The Outdoor Life. Today, I am bringing you some bad news. I don't like to make these kind of videos. I typically try to stay away from them, but I've been working with this company now for over a month, trying to get some kind of a resolution, and it's just not happening. And this time, this is could be a life or death situation. What we're talking about here is tire pressure monitoring system. What I have come to learn is that there are some serious flaws in the TPMSs that are out there. I have some experience with a different model, an inexpensive Chinese one that was doing the same thing, but specifically what we're going to be talking about today is the TireMinder i10 TPMS. So one of the things that I noticed right up front is that when I drive away from my RV, the TireMinder never told me that I was disconnected. And the other model that I had previous did the same thing, and I was kind of weirded out by it, but I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. And then I saw a post not too long ago about somebody who was pulling their car, their vehicle behind a Class C, and they used a TireMinder system where they put the transmitters like these right here onto the car so that they could keep track of what was going on with the car. And a short time later, they realized that the car had a blowout, but the TireMinder never alerted her that there was a problem. And then that got me to thinking, well, what is it that this thing is actually doing? And what I found out is it won't alert you if there's a sudden loss of pressure. So if you have a blowout, this system's not going to tell you. And I don't understand that. And I brought it to the attention of the people at TireMinder, and they're telling me that that's just the way it is. That's the way it's designed. Okay, so today we're going to briefly talk about what a TPMS is, what it's supposed to do, and what it's not doing. And this is not going to be an overview of functions and features and stuff like that. This is just a basic overview of what a tire pressure monitoring system is and does in its simplest form. This is a monitor. So tire pressure monitoring system. So this is the monitor. These are the transmitters. Each transmitter goes on a valve stem and transmits data back to the monitor. And the data is usually tire pressure and tire temperature. In a nutshell, that's it. That's all they do. Gives you the PSI and the degrees of your tire, puts it onto the screen, and the monitor makes a decision with the data that it gets, whether or not it needs to alert you or just show you and display the information. These come in a variety of different configurations. You can get them for 4 tires, all the way up to 10, 12 tires. They come in different variations. The one variation that is very important to understand is signal boosters. Now this goes in between the transmitters and the monitor and boosts the signal so that you don't have any drop of signal between the transmitter and the monitor. And this is extremely important, especially on larger RVs over about 30 feet. I'm at 28 feet, but even when I had a 22-foot RV, I still had a booster. I always wanted to make sure that I had good signal because, like we've mentioned before, a blowout tire can cause a rollover and serious injury and even death. And that's what this whole video is about, is the failure point of TPMS systems. Now today we're going through the TireMinder i10 and how it functions and operates. So everything that you hear about from this point forward is going to be specifically about the i10. It may not correlate across the board to other tire monitoring systems, but I'm told by TireMinder that this is an industry-wide way these things happen. So let's start with the basics. What is actually happening here? So these transmitters are checking the tire pressure and the temperature every 6 seconds. And if it finds a problem, it's supposed to alert the monitor. And we'll cover what those problems are here in a minute. So it's checking, it's no problem. It's going to send an information over to the monitor about every 4 to 5 minutes. So when you read the information online and it says that it updates every 6 seconds, in theory it is, but it's a little deceptive because you're not seeing that update on the monitor. It's actually happening inside the transmitter, and the monitor is only going to get data about every 4 to 5 minutes. So the information that you have on your monitor could be 4 or 5 minutes old. However, there are some circumstances by which the transmitter will immediately send a signal to the monitor when an alert is necessary. And we'll talk about those in a minute. I really want to go over what it's not going to alert you on, because that's the meat of this video, is the problems with what it doesn't do versus what it does do. Now, what it doesn't do. So if it's checking every 6 seconds and it gets a sudden loss of pressure. So if it's got 65 pounds on there, 65 pounds, and then it's 0, it will not alert the monitor. Even though TireMinder's documentation says it does, it doesn't. I've pulled these off to simulate a loss of tire pressure, and it does not tell the monitor that the tire has lost pressure to 0. It's going to show on the monitor 65 pounds. And this goes back to the photos that you just saw with the problem that that woman on Facebook had, which was her tire blew, and that instant loss of pressure didn't register on her TireMinder and didn't let her know. And she sat there and drugged that car with a blown out tire for miles. And that's a problem. It did a lot of damage to her vehicle when the system should have told her that it lost pressure. The other thing it does not do is if this comes off and you lose it, it's not there anymore, so it can't send a signal over to the monitor. And we'll talk about that in a second, because there's other things that could happen that could cause the signal not to go to the monitor. And that other thing is battery. So if you lose a battery, so you can see right in here, there's batteries. If the battery is low, it's not going to alert. If the battery is dead, it's not going to alert. I would expect it to alert the monitor if the battery gets to a certain low voltage, but it doesn't. If the battery is dead, well, it can't communicate with the monitor anymore, so it's not going to, it can't alert to it. However, TireMinder has stated very clearly numerous times that they have an auto disconnect feature in there, but it takes an hour for it to actually be notified that there's a disconnect. Now, the monitor is expecting information from the transmitters about every 4 to 5 minutes. Programmed into the monitor is a counter. The counter counts from 1 to 11. And if it reaches 12, then it's going to throw up on a screen that it's lost signal with a specific sensor. If it's testing every 4 to 5 minutes and its read is 12, that's 60 minutes. So that's an hour long that it's going to take before you know that you've lost a sensor. And again, that could be it came off, the battery's dead, there's a fault with it or something like that. A lot of stuff can happen in an hour's worth of time. But what is interesting to know is that it's actually counting. Instead of counting to 2 and going, oh wow, I didn't get a reading from the sensor and the last 2 times throw an alert. TireMinder's waiting for an hour. It's waiting for the 12th time that it hasn't received its information that it alerts you. That's a program change. I don't get it. What's the big deal? So what those beeps are, this actually has been an hour since I've turned it on, and it's showing you that it's lost signal. Again, once I turned it on, if it didn't have signal, it should have told me. But once I turned it on, if it didn't get its information from the transmitters within 10 minutes, say 2 tries, it should have alerted me then, but it's not. This is what it's supposed to do, and it's what it's doing, but it's taking an hour for it to happen, and that is a major problem. Now, when I brought this up to TireMinder, they sent me a new beta version. So when you first turn these on, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna turn this on. It's reporting whatever was there at the very last time that it turned off. And in this case, that it's missing signals from 3 of the transmitters, because that's what it was doing when we just turned it off. But if you notice, this transmitter is still set at 65 pounds. And when we first started this video, they were all set to a particular PSI. And my trailer is over 20 miles away. It's not receiving information from my trailer. And that's exactly what I'm telling you, folks, is the monitor says it's monitoring even though it's not communicating with the transmitters at all. There should be an immediate notification, like you see it's happening here, that the transmitters have no signal. Now, to combat that, what TireMinder did was they sent me an updated version, and I love them. Their support is really good so far. They sent me an updated version so that when you turn it on, initially, you're gonna get these spinning dash lines, okay? And that's called auto disconnect. And on the ones that are out on the market now, you can reset it every time you turn it on, which is a pain in the butt, but you can reset it so that it will go out and look for the transmitters, and then if it doesn't find them, it will alert you. But in this case, it's looking for the transmitters, and then as soon as it finds the transmitters, it'll show the PSI. It takes about 5 or 6 minutes because it's waiting for all the data to go back and forth. And remember, the transmitter is only going to send data to the monitor about every 4 to 5 minutes. And they did this to show you that it's actually looking for the transmitters. However, when you leave the trailer behind, it doesn't do a disconnect. It takes 12 times, like I said earlier. So why they're not going to 2, like I mentioned, instead of 12, it's beyond me. Okay, so just for clarity, these will not tell you of a sudden loss of pressure. These will not tell you if the batteries are dead, and these will not tell you when it can't read a sensor until the 12th try. So what does that mean? It kind of means that these are kind of pointless. I mean, if I have to get out of my vehicle at every stop and go and make sure that the transmitter is on the tire, and then there's no way to know if the battery's dead, what am I supposed to do? Change the battery before every single trip? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous, but I guess I could. But I mean, what am I supposed to do? If those critical pieces are missing of the puzzle, then the monitor doesn't have a clear picture of what's going on back there. Now, with that said, I do still believe that these have value. Having a TPMS does provide good information while you're traveling. You just got to be aware of what it's not doing and know that that's still a problem and still has to be checked for. So what does it do? Well, it actually tells you what your tire pressure is. So if your tire pressures are getting too high or too low, then it's going to warn you. So it keeps you from having to go out and check your actual PSI every single time that you go out and take off and leave. It also lets you know what the temperature of your tires are. And the temperature of your tires is very important. There's a lot of things that could affect the temperature of a tire. Bad rubber, it's angled wrong, the fact that a brake is dragging, your bearings are dragging, anything that can get hot and heat that tire up, because if you heat that tire up too much, it will explode. So knowing what the pressure is very valuable information, and that information is good to know while you're cruising down the road, because it'll alert you of those kind of problems. And that has a lot of value. Now, the way that this one works is if the transmitter goes out and checks, like it's doing every 6 seconds, and the PSI is 3 pounds less for more than 2 minutes, it's going to send an alert to the monitor. So that's in the middle of the 4 to 5 minute mark that it's going to send it over to the monitor and say, hey, we got an issue. The tire pressure is dropped by 2 pounds. This one also does 6 pounds. If it between 2 and 5 minutes, it's lost 6 pounds, and then it will alert it again. So within that 5-minute window-ish, it could get 2 alerts before its normal 5-minute cycle is up. So that's good. That's good to know, because 6 pounds of pressure is a lot in 5 minutes to lose. The other thing is that it's going to be monitoring, like I said, your temperature. So if you push the button on here, you can see it's lost the sensors down there, but you can see it says 87 degrees. That was 87 degrees from the last time I connected. That's not these right here. But around 90 to, I'm seeing 90 to 100 degrees is about where my tires usually are normally running, usually under 100 degrees. But if it gets anywhere up close to like 160 degrees where there's a serious problem, then the transmitter is going to send information over to the monitor immediately that there's a high temp problem. So they do have value. So don't go out and just toss yours away. But just know that there are some issues that are not being monitored that are very critical to what you need to know. And for me, that kind of goes against the grain of what it's supposed to be doing. Personally, in my opinion, I think it's deceptive marketing, because if it's not going to actually monitor for something like a sudden tire pressure loss, I mean, that's kind of what it does, then it's really, I don't want to say pointless and useless, but it really does fail. I mean, it does fail because it's giving you a false sense of security thinking that everything's good when in reality that's not. And that's the thing that you need to pay attention to. So know what's going on and understand the limitations of what these systems are. I'm still working with TireMinder. Hopefully, both of these are real simple software fixes. I know they don't want to do a recall on this, all this stuff, because that's going to be very expensive. But if somebody dies because a tire blows and their vehicle rolled over and crushed them, how expensive is that going to be? I mean, that's just my opinion.